this is?
My name is Dan Stern.
Dan Stern and I met in 1981 here at 30 Lincoln Plaza, the building behind us, and located in 30 Lincoln Plaza were the Lincoln Plaza Cinemas. Three-screen theater exclusively devoted to art films, foreign films, owned by Dan Talbot, also the owner of New Yorker Films. I was walking down the street one day after getting fired from Sardi's as a waiter, not knowing what I was going to do, and I stopped by the box office, and the manager at the time was Jim Tisran, the first manager of Lincoln Plaza Cinemas. I came up and asked him if he had a job. He hired me on the spot. Took me downstairs, and the first person I met was Dan Stern, 1981, and Dan was the doorman in the theater, and I got hired as an usher. And that was the beginning of our relationship. But what I didn't know was how important this theater was to the United States and to the New York community. This theater was in the world. This theater was an exclusive art and foreign film house. Exclusive meaning there was no other theater that showed foreign films in New York. There was no other theater showing these kind of films at all. Films like Aguirre, The Wrath of God, films like My Dinner with Andre. These films were only at this theater, and if you wanted to see those films, you had to come here to see them. So we got these incredible guests that would come in. Stories that I had over the 8 years of running this theater were incredible. And Dan and I hope to share some of those memories with you today, and just want to thank Dan Talbot for the experiences that I was able to have, and I'm sure that Dan had as well through the years. So here we go, Lincoln Plaza Cinemas. Just a little history of 30 Lincoln Plaza, located here behind us, the location of Lincoln Plaza Cinemas. This is the corner at 63rd and Broadway, where Taxi Driver De Niro pulls up in his cab. This was the original Palatine headquarters, this corner. Now they're building now, 30 Lincoln Plaza came up. Back then it was an entirely different building. But it's just an interesting cinematic moment that I think is wonderful, because that's one of my favorite films of Scorsese, if not my favorite, Taxi Driver. And this is the original location, this corner for Palatine headquarters. Here we are in front of the marquee for the Lincoln Plaza Cinemas. It's the original marquee that's been here since 1981. And part of Dan and I's job was to change the titles, the letters, from week to week with new openings or closures. And that was done with a long aluminum pole with an extension on it, with a suction cup. And we would use clear plastic letters, and you'd have to take that and slide it into a slot, and we would spell out the entire title of the film, the quote from Vincent Canby on a film or something. But it was quite a bit of work. We had to do this in the snowstorms, rainstorms, hot summer, high winds.
Sometimes the letters would blow off and break, and we'd be chasing them down the street.
True. Chasing letters down the street.
And it's almost hitting people in the head. We tell them, watch out. It's like, what's going on here?
It was a lot of work. A lot of work.
We might get a last minute change after we do it. It's like, oh no, they don't want that quote. It's like, oh okay.
Got to go back and redo
it's like
it
2
again.
in the morning, we're up there. It's like,
But this marquee has a lot of history. Believe me, a lot of titles have come and gone on that marquee through many, many years, many, many weekends, and many, many showings. So let's move on and take another talk about something else about the Lincoln Plaza Cinemas. This is the box office for the Lincoln Plaza Cinemas, and as you can see, there's a lot of construction materials around because they're in the process of tearing everything down. Box office was very busy back then. We had lines for, like, you would start a line here and it'd go around the block, and we had 3 screens, and sometimes all 3 screens were selling out. So you had a line going this way, a line going that way, and this is pre-credit card. So everything was a cash transaction. So if you can imagine, with that many people, how much cash we had to bundle and the end of the night. Part of our job was just depositing money. And we had like rolls of money with deposit slips. What were we doing on that?
Listen, remember when the theater first opened, it was a chance. Like, you know, Dan had invested, he took loans, and it was like nobody knew what was going to happen. He might have lost everything. We didn't know. Remember, within the first 2 days, the whole box office was filling up with 20s. We couldn't have drawers. We throw it, and then
Money.
And then Dan said, just throw the thing on the floor. We'll put it. We had shopping bags. We were running downstairs with shopping bags. We put a sweater on top. The box office, we were drowning in 20s. Remember that? I'm not making that up. Remember?
60% of our job was counting money. And
we didn't. It was like we couldn't believe what a hit it was. People all over. It was going in 10 directions. We know how to make the lines. We couldn't. The lines were crisscrossing. People. It was almost a riot.
Eventually, we figured it out. Wonderful theater gave New York the opportunity to see films they couldn't see anywhere else. Right. And I said before, this was an exclusive house. I don't know if you can understand that today. There's so many screens showing so many pictures. This was the only screen that would show a movie. And if you wanted to see that film, you had to come here. So the cross section of people we got coming to see here.
And there was one person who had their finger on the pulse. He saw 3 or 4 or 5 movies a day. He went to every festival, and he picked the ones that he said when I saw a movie, I wasn't watching for entertainment. I wanted to have a religious experience, not necessarily that, you know, whatever that means, the spiritual. He wanted to feel like it took him to a spiritual place.
And that person was?
Well, we know that was Dan Talbot, and he would pick the movies, and everybody said, I don't know who's picking the movies there, but every one of them touches me and is powerful, it's life-changing. I mean, Dan Talbot was a genius, you know. He was a great man, and this was the spot where it happened, you know. He affected everybody. And it was an honor. I worked here. I said, wow, I'm so proud to be working under the auspices of this man, you know. It's just like you just knew, you felt it, you know.
He was the man behind the curtain. One of the most exciting film openings for me while working at Liquor Plaza Cinemas was we opened a film called My Dinner with Andre. And it was virtually, for the first 2 weeks, there was no one in the auditorium. And the guy that was working at New Yorker Films, who owned the house and distributed the film, was thinking about pulling it because there was no one in. But I would go into the back of the theater, and there'd be 3 or 4 people in the auditorium, and they'd be laughing their asses off. And I started getting into this film, and it was hilarious. And so I told Jeff Lipsky, I was like, Jeff, we can't pull this film, this is going to catch on. And Dan was about to pull it because it was losing money, it wasn't doing anything. And then all of a sudden, people started to trickle in, the word of mouth started working, and within a couple of weeks, it was selling out, night after night. We had My Dinner with Andre to sell out crowds for a year. And it was just wonderful to watch how that film grew, and the people who came in and saw it, the list of people is just phenomenal who came in to see that film. We had one day I was at the door, or Dan was at the door, and I was standing there, and John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd came in. And Dan Aykroyd had like a beanie pulled down over his head, and was very shy acting and aloof. But John Belushi was like really kind of gregarious, friendly.
He was a big guy, right?
Yeah.
He was huge.
So they go in, they see the film. Oh, and back then we had ashtrays in the lobby of the theater. People could smoke in movie theaters in the lobbies back then, which is a, you can't even smoke in a bar anymore. So the film ends, and they come out, and Belushi's doing like this, and he goes, "Do you have a match?" So yeah. So I lit a cigarette, and he's standing there in the lobby, and I said, "So what did you think of the film?" And Belushi says, "Oh, it was interesting. We're going over to Louis and Candace's tonight to have dinner." And that's Louis Malle, who directed the film, and Candace Bergen was Louis Malle's wife at the time. So I was like, "Oh, okay." So anyway, he thanked me for the light, and they just kind of wandered out of the theater. But that was just one of the numerous experiences I had while showing My Dinner with Andre.
Like they were calling it the Dinner with Andre Theater, but people were still packing it in on the weekends. We were selling out. It was like for a year. It's like it was. People would say, "Oh my God," but then they say, "Well, I saw it already. I'll see it again." And they say it was like better the third time, you know. But one thing I noticed, it really held up. We saw it so many times. So I don't know if Marlon will do this for us, but I know Marlon's seen it so many times, and he just happens to be has that talent, that art's unique talent of doing impressions. Can you give us a little bit of Andre and just do a little bit for us? Do a little bit. Just you can do it. Come on, let's see.
If I'm in a Chinese restaurant and I get a fortune cookie, and I read that fortune cookie, and it says, "Don't buy a ticket for an airline today. Don't take the flight." Well, I mean, of course I'm going to take the flight because that fortune cookie is in no position to know the state of the engines, the mentality of the pilot. He's in no position to know about that. A fortune cookie cannot know about that.
And then Andre's just like, "Well, Wally, what would you place your beliefs in the theory of relativity or the mathematical equations of it? Like, what is it you believe in, Wally?" And then Wally's just like, anyway, numerous hilarious scenes in the film. And first opened here and played exclusively at the Lincoln Plaza.
Remember the guy who played the waiter in the restaurant and worked as a doorman in the theater? I don't remember.
Claude, Jean, or
right.
Claude, or
if people would see the movie, they say, "Wait, aren't you the guy in the movie?" He says, "Yeah." He said, "What are you doing here?" He says, "I'm tearing tickets." He says,
he was
that
the
bad?
doorman.
He says, "No, I like tearing
at
tickets."
The theater, and also
he was
one of the stars of the movie.
Yeah, right. He was he was the main background character. And people say, "Isn't that the guy in the movie?" You know.
People would come in, see the film, and come out, and the same guy that tore their ticket. And people.
and Andre Well used to come to the theater all the time. They sit in the back, they'd be in the audience, and they talked to him. It was like a whole social thing. It was really nice, you know.
It was a wild experience.
Dan booked this movie, which I'd never heard of. I think he introduced a lot of films to the United States, like a lot of Fellini, Godard, Truffaut. I mean, he's the one that brought them here and exposed them. Without him, we might not have heard of some of these people. Anyway, who directed Wooden Clubs? You know, Trading with Clubs?
Wasn't, it's Olmi.
Anyway, somebody said it's like we had this and sometimes you work in there, you don't see all the movies. So somebody said you should check out this Wooden Clogs thing. I said, well, I work here. I want to go. And said, no, see this one. They say it's very long and it's very slow. So they said, but see it. So I have to say, I saw that movie, and it is very long, and it is very slow, and it's been so many years. But I'll tell you, that movie. Like, if people ask you what's the best movie you ever saw in your life, like, I don't know why, but that one pops up in my unconscious. Like, I don't know why. But that movie actually changed my perception of reality. Like, when I was done with that movie, the world was different. It's not like I was watching a movie. It's like I had experienced the movie, you know? It's like I'd gone somewhere and I was a different person. And he had a special deal. He had a contract that was like about 2 paragraphs, and he had his checkbook, and he would go to the festival. He says, this is the deal. I know you're going to screen for a million people. This is my offer. There's the contract. I'm not going to make it again. If you want it, I'm offering such and such. You know, I'm going to show it. I'm going to publicize it. It's going to be in Lincoln Plaza. Do you want to do it? So he introduced Spike Lee. He got Spike Lee's first film at the Metro, another theater.
She's Gotta Have It.
Right, She's Gotta Have It. I remember Spike Lee used to come into the theater all the time. He's there checking the numbers.
Jose Lopez, who was Dan's backbone in New Yorker Films, really was the nuts and bolts. He ran the whole operation.
The day-to-day. Yeah.
Called me one day on the phone and said, Marlon, I have a new director that's coming out. We're opening his film at the Cinema Studio, which is another film that Dan owns just a few blocks up the street. And said, we want you to run a trailer of this director. And I said, okay, well, what's the guy's name? He goes, the guy's name is Spike Lee. And I said, okay, Spike Lee. He goes, yeah, we're opening a film. It's called She's Gotta Have It. And he wants to view the trailer. So we need you to get the trailer up and running in screen number 3. So Spike comes in. I didn't know who Spike Lee was. They didn't know who I was.
Well, nobody knew who he was. He came out of film school.
So he comes and we play the trailer, and it's a trailer. It's Spike Lee on a street corner. It has nothing to do with the film. It's Spike Lee going, tube socks, tube socks. Anybody want to buy tube socks? I got tube socks, tube socks. And he goes, oh, my name is Spike Lee, and I'm opening a film this weekend called She's Gotta Have It. And I would really like it if you'd come out and see it. Thank you. Tube socks, tube socks. Anyone want to buy tube socks? And that was the Spike Lee trailer for She's Gotta Have It. And we threaded it up, played it for him, and then he was gone. And the next thing you know, Spike Lee is the next big thing.
Yeah, just also at the Metro. It opened at the Metro. So like nobody knows Spike Lee. So he came in. He says, "I'm Spike Lee." I said, "Oh, how you doing?" He says, "They're opening my film here." I said, "Okay, cool." So he says, "You mind if I come in the box office with you and see the numbers?" I said, "All right." And, you know, he's not tall, so he was just cute. He's like leaning over, looking at, "What is this ticket? What does this mean? Is that a good number?" I said, "Yeah, it's pretty good." And he came with Bingham Ray. So Bingham Ray was a guy who worked in New Yorker Films. Yeah, so they were in there, and he was so focused and enthusiastic. I said, "I don't know who this guy is, but he's definitely going to make it." I had that vibe right away. I said, "He is in the zone." You know what I mean?
Anyway,
so, you know, and he was a good guy.
Just another experience working with Dan Talbot. This is the park behind the Lincoln Plaza Cinemas, where a lot of people come out. Once they get their tickets, they would come out and relax, and, you know, wait for their showtime to come up. And the showtimes that the shows, the movies, like some of the directors that Dan Talbot introduced to America, Rainer Werner Fassbinder, The Marriage of Maria Braun, The Seduction of Mimi. God, we did a lot of Fassbinder films. Remember the one night we opened Berlin Alexanderplatz?
That's what I was thinking.
And,
that was wild.
It started like at midnight, so people bought their tickets. They showed up at midnight. They brought their sleeping bags and pillows.
Yeah, that was like that was a real
and it
cult
played
film.
till 11 a.m.
into the
next
theater.
morning.
Yeah.
It was like a 12
that was a mind blower.
12-hour movie or something.
That was so dark. It just took people into another place.
And it was a fabulous. Like if you've never seen Berlin Alexanderplatz, you have to give it a chance. But this was like a brand new opening.
Somebody was telling me they couldn't watch it without a bottle of Jack Daniels to cut the edge. He said it was that heavy.
Nowhere to see it but here, though. You had to, if you wanted to see it, this is where you had to see it. And so we did get, like we almost had a sold-out house from midnight till 11 a.m. in the morning, coming to see Berlin Alexanderplatz. And fabulous film. It just goes on and on. It's an episodic. I think it was originally made for television in Germany.
Right.
And it's like 1-hour episodes.
Right.
And there were like 12 of them. So it was like 12 straight hours.
Right. That's
showed all 12 episodes.
That's a lot of
and die-hard film fans sat there all night long and watched the movie. And I just can't see something like that happening in this day and age.
You never met Fassbinder, right?
No, I did not. But truly introduced to him by Dan Talbot, and now I'm a big fan. I love Fassbinder films. Another Aguirre, the Wrath of God. We opened, which is a Werner Herzog film, and he really introduced him to a wider audience in the United States. And now Werner Herzog's still working today and directing and making movies today, and it all started right here in the United States.
I think also not just the movies that Dan picked, but he had a real following, like the audience, the people that came here. It wasn't the same audience that went to all the regular theaters necessarily, you know? Like they had a certain, they were very sophisticated, and they were very edgy, and they were kind of like part of him. It was like some collective unconscious thing going on. Because the audience there, we were all in tune, like we were in the zone, all of us, you know? And we look at each other like there was something. It wasn't just a movie theater where you buy a ticket. This was a family here. You know, this was an unusual situation.
Yeah.
One real fast thing. I remember I worked at the Metro, and Dan had got some offers or something, and then
another
he decided.
theater Dan owned, the Metro Theater.
Right, that was up on 100th Street, and he decided to sell it. And I was the manager there, so he didn't want me to lose a job, you know, and he didn't have any other place for me, so he made a deal, a condition. He says, "I'll sell you the Metro, but one of the conditions is that the manager, Dan Stern, you can't fire him. You have to take him with the Metro." So that was nice of him to do that. So Dan came by one day and he says, "Dan, you know, it's finalized. I'm selling the Metro." I said, "Oh, okay. So can you put me in the Lincoln Plaza?" So he says, "Dan, we don't have a spot." I said, "Okay, I understand." He says, "No, you got a job." I said, "What?" He says, "You're going to stay with the Metro with them." So I really had to hold back the tears. So he said, "Dan, what's the matter? You got a job."
Well,
so I said, "Dan, this isn't just a job, man." I said, "You don't understand." He says, "No, you're going to get the same money. I negotiated everything." I said, "It's not about the money, man." I said, "What's the problem?" I said, "The problem is you, man. It's like we're a family here, man. I don't want to work for anybody else." You know what I mean? It's like he didn't really totally understand. He says, "But it's a job." I said, "Dan, you don't really understand. Like there was something about him. He had a charisma. You know, like they say, certain people who have leadership, they talk slowly. Like he was a guy, he wouldn't talk that much. Sometimes he would just say stuff with his eyes. He just demanded respect, you know. And he was a good guy. With the projectionist here, when they went digital, everybody was scared. All the theaters, they knew all the projections. Oh my God, we're getting fired. The managers are projectionists, they're cutting back. So Dan went up to all the projectionists. He says, look, I know you guys are biting your nails. He says, stop biting your nails. He says, as long as I'm in control of this theater, you guys got a job. It's like whether we need you or whether you got to push a button, whatever it is, I want professionals that can fix the machines. You've been working with me for 20 years. You're not going anywhere. What's real fast? When I first came in, I was the doorman. Marlon just got a job. He just came off the boat. So he says, Dan, how do I do this? I said, I don't know. Because he had to pick up the popcorn cups. I was telling him, I said, you pick up the cups, you throw them away, you open and close the doors. So I was teaching him how to do it, but he has natural leadership skills. So after a while, they made him the manager, and I was still tearing tickets. So then he's telling me, Dan, you know, we got to keep the door. I said, man, I trained you how to do everything. He says, yeah, but he says, I've had management experience. It's like, you know, I'll help you, but, you know, they didn't promote me for no reason. It's like, so I had to swallow my pride. I said, okay, you know, so you're the boss. And he said, Dan, you can't question authority all the time. I'm the manager. You know, it's like if I tell you what to do it. And if you can work with me, then I'll recommend that you work with other people. But you're not in charge of anything. I said, I know. So he actually taught me some leadership skills. So he says, Dan, I'll teach you, but you're not in charge. You know, it's like if you think you're in charge and you're not going to go anywhere. So he taught me a lot, and eventually I became assistant manager with him and manager. So I owe a lot to this guy. Even though I was the first one that trained him, I had to adjust to it. But we've been friends for like, I don't know, like 40 years. Like, you know, he just walked in there. I never thought we'd be talking now about the Lincoln Plaza like all these years ago. It's like he's still one of my best friends after a million years.
Okay, folks, this is the location of New Yorker Films, their offices. They were on the 11th floor of 16 West 61st Street. And this is where this is where New Yorker Films was. They owned the Lincoln Plaza Cinemas, Cinema Studio,
Metro,
and the Metro up in
and originally,
99.
well, the New Yorker movie theater was before.
That was like
where they
1965.
Started.
They started at the New Yorker Theater on the Upper
Right,
West
95th
Side.
Street,
And that's where he started New Yorker Films as well.
Right.
And I wish, I could kick myself, but I lost the old film catalog.
Right.
And almost all college universities did all their revival houses and everything.
Oh, yeah,
they would look through those catalogs.
Right.
The titles. Dan had so many titles.
It was the go-to place for foreign films and independent films. That was
college
it.
campuses that were showing art films and stuff. They called Jose Lopez at the New Yorker Films. He would negotiate the deal. And they would send these the prints out
these giant reels,
to these universities.
Digital, yeah.
Well, that was all 16 millimeter back then. It was on 16.
Right,
and just the influence that New Yorker Films had on culture in the United States is.
It's hard to imagine what cinema history would be like without Dan and New Yorker Films.
He changed cinema history in the United States.
So significant, yeah. I was a little upset at the screen at the Academy Awards last year. I was expecting to see Dan's face there. He was like instrumental. He's definitely a player in film history. I kept waiting for his face. It's like, what the heck? What's happening? So I don't know why they didn't put him there, but he definitely had a major impact.
Well, he does still get a lot of tribute today. There's a lot of articles written about him.
Maybe
He's been
eventually
in the New Yorker. Toby, his wife, who was
his partner,
the queen of New Yorker Films and Lincoln Plaza Cinemas. She was the real matriarch of the company.
Yeah.
And you knew.
And she traveled around the world looking at films too.
Absolutely.
Together, we went to China. She brought films from these remote areas. People didn't even know they had films.
Dan used to go.
She'd come in here and almost like in rags, like going through these different places to bring these films. You got to show this one. Here's the money. She was totally committed too. I mean, she was. That's a whole other story.
They used to fly into the Berlin Film Festival, the Cannes Film Festival.
She is an amazing
person. They would pick up product and bring it back to the United States and distribute it through the theaters, Lincoln Plaza Cinemas, Cinema Studio. And it all came out of these offices on the 11th floor. It was Mary Lugo, Suzanne Vega, Phyllis Vega. Oh my goodness, I hate not remembering names, but the company, the people that worked there were such a family, and they were all devoted to what they were doing, and what a company. And
let me say one thing about Bingham. I mean, you probably know better than me, but one thing, like, because I know more at the theater, he was reminding me of like a Teddy Roosevelt kind of character, like what you'd imagine. Like you come to the theater, it's like, all right, what's going on here? The poster's crooked, Dan. You guys got to straighten it out. It has to be like everything's straight. There's a smudge. The rug, we got to clean it so there's a scratch. Like he was like super thorough, and he was like a pep guy. It's like, we got to do this, Marlon. Come on, we're doing good. Let's get the numbers up, you know. So he was just such a positive force, that guy. You know, he'd come in and just like the whole place would light up. I mean, do you have any stories about Bingham?
Bingham went on out to Los Angeles and was just like practically a mogul. I think he was a United Artist. He was in charge of all their art. He and Jeff Lipsky started Island Pictures, Island Alive.
October Films, and there was something.
And Jeff Lipsky now is a director, a film director in his own right.
You were actually in, what movie were you in?
Childhood's End. He gave me a small role in that. And he's still directing today. And he started here with Dan Talbot, New Yorker Films, along with Bingham, and the list of names.
And also, if you came up there, we had to go there to the office to get different things that we needed. It's like you never know which director or celebrity. Everybody's just, well, I guess that's the
Bertolucci, Marcello Mastroianni. You never knew who you would run into.
And Dan was always there in his side office. Like you just see him there. It's like he was like like you just feel the vibe. Like he was like the central axis of the network.
Right.
You know,
anyway,
it was nice. Yeah.
New Yorker Films. What a company. And no longer exists today.
But it goes
and
on.
Hopefully those prints aren't lost over a period of time because, wow, I mean, just title after title after title after title of films that change culture in the United States. What an impact, what an influence this company, Dan's company, had on American film goers. And tribute to him, and what a wonderful impact he had on our society. Our culture. I was here from 81 to 88, and that was when it was a 3-screen theater, and eventually it expanded into 6 screens. And that's when I think that personally things sort of changed in the country. The theater was no longer exclusive. You had the Angelica that opened up downstairs, Landmark theaters. So if we weren't the only ones that had product, we were sharing it now. So this wasn't the only theater. You could see the film. You had numerous places to go. And another thing is the influence that Dan had on the country, because these type houses started opening up all over Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Miami, and it all started here. It all started here, which is really fascinating when you think about it. And all the people that we had through the years, like Diana Watson as the cashier, and Eberto.
Remember Eberto used to, once in a while he'd bring in his classical guitar. It's just little, I forget what country he's from. But he just, you don't know who people are. He's just, he said, like, can I play something for you, Dan? I said, yeah, he's just this amazing Segovia, like, classical guitar. And then we had this guy, Noel. I think he was a doorman in Dan's building. He was the cutest guy, kind of looked like Jiminy Cricket. Like
wonderful guy, good hearted.
He was the sweetest guy, always joking with me.
He was with Dan forever,
yeah, and they were like buddies, you know. Yeah, Frank Rowley worked here for a lot of years. He was a good guy. And of course, Netu and
those days ended, and they're gone forever, and you can't bring them back. And the impact, the influence they had on the country, but they're gone times now. It's just it's a shame. The foreign film, the art market has changed. Now everything's English speaking, big Hollywood productions. Everything has to make big bucks.
Mitch George must say has nothing to do. But remember, it's true. It was 3 theaters, and it was just very easy and smooth. And then they decided to expand it, which was great. But it did change the character of the theater. And I think when other people, that got their attention. Wait a minute, they went from 3 to 6. Whoa, they started looking at the numbers, and then all of a sudden you got Angelica, you got popping up all over the place. But when we were 3, it's like, well, they're just a little, niche.
That's where Miramax
one thing I remember,
over the world.
Dan's daughter, Nina Talbot, I remember, this is a side thing, she did this giant painting. We couldn't even fit it down the staircase. We had to fold it into like 5 pieces, and she did this huge mural that was in the lobby that was like iconic part of Lincoln Plaza. These profiles of faces that was really beautiful. I remember when she came and did it.
It changed. And,
it was a real time of history. It was a real. People came there and they got a vibe, But there's other theaters, and it continued. But he planted the seed, like you said, and it goes on. It goes on, and Dan goes on.
Anyway, those days are gone. I was glad I was part of them. I'm glad you were
part of them.
Thank you for listening. I hope we were informative in some way. We're theater managers for years.